You know, in faith circles, you hear this phrase all the time, the walk of faith. But have you ever stopped to think about what that really, truly means? Well, today, we're going to unpack that very idea. We're diving into a guide that breaks down how this simple metaphor of a walk can shape everything from your innermost thoughts to your everyday actions. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll nail down what this walk actually is. Then we'll get into the why, the motivation behind it. From there, we'll look at the internal shift that has to happen, what that looks like in the real world with practical duties, and finally, what the whole point of the journey is. All right, first things first, let's get to the heart of this central metaphor. When this guide talks about a walk, what are we really talking about? Now, the guide is super intentional here. Walk isn't just some casual term they throw around. It's a very specific concept with deep roots. So let's look at what's really behind the word itself. And it all traces back to this one Greek verb, peripateo. This is so cool. It doesn't just mean getting from point A to point B. It's about how you live your life, how you carry yourself every single day. It's a total all-encompassing way of being. So when you think peripateo, it implies a few really key things. For one, this is a continuous action, a lifestyle, not a weekend event. It's also step-by-step, a daily process, so forget about giant heroic leaps. And direction is huge. You're always moving toward a specific goal. Finally, it's a balancing act, constantly integrating big principles like truth and grace. Okay, so if that's the what, let's talk about the why. What's supposed to motivate someone to take on this kind of walk? According to this guide, it's not about just becoming a better person. It's rooted in something way, way bigger. The big idea here is that the entire reason for this life of discipline is to reflect the very character of God. Things like love, justice, mercy, and this deep desire for relationship, that's the fuel for the journey. And this verse from Micah just boils it all down perfectly, doesn't it? It connects everything. What's required? Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. It's a beautiful summary, linking our daily actions directly to God's own character. So, the motivation is to mirror God's character. But how on earth does a person even start doing that? Well, the guide argues that it doesn't begin with what you do on the outside. It all starts with a massive change on the inside. The starting line, as this passage from Romans puts it, is this conscious, total dedication of your entire self. And notice it's framed as your reasonable service. Like, it's the most logical, natural response you could have. Not a burden, but something that just makes sense. And that decision leads you to this fundamental fork in the road. The guide really highlights this contrast. You can be conformed, which is just kind of mindlessly adopting the world's patterns around you, or you can be transformed, a deep internal rewiring of how you think, based on a totally different set of truths. This transformation is basically powered by a three-part engine. First, you're actively renewing your mind. Then, you're learning to be led by the Spirit for guidance. And the result? You start to produce what's called the fruit of the Spirit. It's this idea that amazing character traits like love, joy, and peace start to flow out of your life naturally. Okay, so with that internal engine fired up and running, what does this walk actually look like on, a Tuesday afternoon? This is where the guide shifts from the internal to the external, laying out the practical, day-to-day stuff. And the guide is crystal clear on this point. These actions are not a checklist you follow to try and earn points with God. Not at all. They are seen as the natural, visible evidence of that inner change. The heart changes first, and then the hands get to work. Take how we engage with the Bible, for example. The guide breaks it down beautifully. You read it for knowledge and guidance, you study it to get the deeper context, but then you meditate on it. And that's the part where you let it really sink in and actually change how you think and act. The same kind of structured but helpful approach is applied to prayer. You've probably seen this ACTS model. It's just a simple framework to help make sure your prayer life is balanced. Adoration, confession, thanksgiving, and then supplication, which is just asking for things. And the list of duties just keeps expanding outward into the community. Things like fellowship, helping others grow, using your unique gifts, and just practically serving the people around you. It paints this really vivid picture where faith is anything but private. It's lived out loud with and for other people. So, all of this brings us to the final and maybe the most important question. With all these duties and all these disciplines, what's the end game? What is this all supposed to feel like? And this is the exact tension the guide tackles head on. After laying out this whole list of responsibilities, it basically asks, is this just a heavy, exhausting weight you have to carry, or is it something else entirely? And the answer is a real game changer. The guide's conclusion is that these duties are meant to be joyful expressions that just bubble up from a changed heart. The goal isn't some legalistic checklist, it's a natural, loving, grateful response. And this whole perspective is really grounded in the belief that the desire and even the power to do these things don't come from your own grit. The source points to passages like this one, which suggests it's actually a divine work happening inside of you, giving you both the want to and the ability to. And so, the guide leaves us with this final, powerful assurance that this walk, this whole life of inner transformation and outward service, is not for nothing. It's framed as this steadfast, meaningful, abundant work that has a lasting purpose and, in the end, is absolutely not in vain.